Hi, everyone.
Oh boy, we've got a great show for you today. Firstly, happy one day belated Valentine's Day. Wait, hold on. Let me make sure I'm saying yes. We're one day behind Valentine's Day, so we are
Happy
calling.
Hangover Day and
Yes,
UTI Day and Headache from Crying Day.
we are calling this our Valentine's Day episode. So,
Or as Lee and I used to have a thing called the Valentine's Day Hangover Day. This is us.
oh, that's fun. So today we're going to talk to Aaron Steinberg from Babyproofing Your Relationship to learn how to, you guessed it, baby-proof your relationship, even if your kids aren't babies anymore.
Are you gonna put those oven knobs on my boobies? Is that how you're gonna baby proof my relationship?
Yep.
Okay, great.
For a second, I was like, what?
Are you gonna put a safety plug in me? Anyway. And then we are talking about confidence and overconfidence in children. Probably Ashley and ours, most likely.
Yeah.
Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, we all know my confidence level. So let's see what the experts have to say about that.
And as always, we have our hashtag swag bag. But up next, take it away, small child.
All right.
I'll start this week. Man, I am gearing up for a very busy week, and I kind of have anxiety about it. Just like you and I are going to take our kids, aside from the normal bullshit that we have to do all week long, you and I are taking our kids to their first Broadway show on Thursday. They're going to go see Aladdin.
One jump ahead of the red line.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And we're going to go have a nice dinner beforehand.
Nice.
And then before that, I'm taking Sebastian to see Matt's office because Matt really wants to show him around the office. And then the following day, I have a screening. It's just a lot. And I don't like, and the day before all of that, Sebastian has dance class after school.
We're just used to being locked in COVID. This is just like what normal life used to be like.
I know. I mean,
isn't that crazy?
I remember at the beginning of my career being out every single night till 10 o'clock. I don't know how I did it. And now,
I remember being so busy that I didn't have time to do laundry, so I just buy new underwear.
Yeah, it just gives me anxiety to be in this place, and it's overwhelming and it's kind of scary to me, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have any shits. I mean, other than
that's nice.
Trying to get over this anxiety of having too much shit going on. I don't know why I'm like this, but I am. I don't know. I'm a home. You know what it is? I've been doing a lot of looking at my birth chart.
Wow.
And I think I know.
Okay.
I think we really need to have a serious birth chart person back on the show.
I have been down.
Yeah. So it turns out I have, oh my God, what's it called? A stellium? Yeah. So
You can really say anything and I'd be like, cool.
Let me just Google stellium.
I have a sternum. Yeah.
Yeah, stellium. So I have a stellium in my 12th house of Virgo, which means...
What the fuck does that mean, Ashley?
Yeah, I know. Thanks, TikTok. It means I have 3 planets in Virgo placement in the 12th house. And I'm still trying to wrap my brain around what the fuck that means, in all honesty. But essentially, I am a full-blown fucking Virgo. Very, very much so. And one of those traits about being a Virgo is just really being, being a homebody and not wanting to go out and not want, I could live my entire... There are days I don't leave my house, not to walk the dog, not to take Sebastian to school, and I don't have any problem with that. I don't need to be outside in any way, shape, or form. I'm very happy dwelling in my house and being self-sufficient. I don't know. And it's not the healthiest thing. I really don't think it is, and I can force myself, but I don't often, and I don't want to. I'm very happy. Created a very safe, happy cocoon, and I can understand how people become
hermits.
Yeah, I'm agoraphobic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at.
I'm not really sure if these things I'm going to say are a tit or a shit, so I'm just going to combine them all together and be isn't that how life is? Sometimes you just don't know.
Fix the screen of your computer so your whole head is in, if you can. Because we're going to be putting this on YouTube. There you go. Much better. Thank you.
So I don't know if this is like a tit or a shit. I don't even know. One, my CPAP came, my CPAP machine. I'm so excited to like everything I've ever heard. I've been on deep CPAP web, guys. I've been on it. Everyone says that like even if you only sleep 2 hours with a CPAP machine, it's like the best sleep you've ever had because you haven't
Really?
slept well in so long.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I can't remember the last time that I slept well. And I got fitted for this thing today. I've been waiting so long for it. I am so excited to get optimal sleep. I just want to be Keri 2.0. I want to be optimal, optimal, optimal. Make me a robot. Give me a blue pill, whatever. I just want to be doing better. I want to be doing better. I want to be sliving. Isn't that what Paris says?
Sliving, yes.
I want to be sliving.
New mother, Paris Hilton.
Yes, I want to be sliving. Shout out to Paris. The other thing is, I'm always hesitant to talk about this stuff, but I'm going to start tapering off my anti-anxiety and my meds because I don't really know if
SSRIs?
I don't really know if they're working anymore.
I mean, apparently you're supposed to after some time.
Yeah, and I have been, having some medical stuff going on the last 2 years between menopause and weight gain and high blood pressure.
How long have you been on them? Can I ask?
A while now. I mean,
give me a ballpark of years.
Well, this specific kind since I had Luna, so 4 years.
Okay.
But I was on something before her.
Okay.
So a long time. And I just feel like I don't know what stasis is anymore. I just have medicines on medicines on medicines on medicines. And so I had a discussion with my healthcare provider and my therapist and everybody involved. This isn't like I'm just doing it on my own. Don't ever do that, guys. That's a terrible idea. To try to slowly come off and see what conditions stay and what conditions go away.
God, that's so scary to me. Not as I don't mean like, oh, I'm so scared of you going off and what that's going to do to me. I don't mean it like that. I mean like thinking of myself in that position and just thinking about times that I've gone on or off medication, birth control specifically, and it's made me an absolute fucking crazy person, an uncontrollable crazy person. And so like hearing that alone just gives me so much anxiety. Like, oh my God, that poor, is it worth doing this for herself? Is she putting herself through something that she doesn't need to?
I feel like some things are counteracting other things. Like I don't know what the base level is right now.
There's
been too much tinkering, and I've been off meds before and it's been fine. And I'm in a good space, And so I'm in a good, safe place, guys. So I'm going to attempt to do that and just kind of re-put things together and figure out what's needed and what's not needed, and maybe try some other alternative ways. We'll be hinting at a Patreon situation. I don't want to talk about it on the show, but I want it behind a paywall, guys. But talking maybe about some other things that I might be doing just to try to figure out a way to make everything, to know who I am and know what these things are doing to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a tit or a shit. It's just life.
Next up, Aaron Steinberg. Today's guest has supported thousands of people through his coaching practice and live courses, successfully helping a diverse range of folks on the brink of divorce to those simply looking to strengthen their partnerships. His course, Babyproofing Your Relationship, draws on principles learned in his Master's in Psychology certificate in Complex Trauma Practice and robust education in sex and relationships from the Gottman Institute and the Couples Institute. This is the course every coupled parent needs because everyone deserves access to practices and principles that we need to thrive through parenthood. So let's welcome husband, father, and creator of Babyproofing Your Relationship, Aaron Steinberg. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Actually, me and my partner have been looking into getting a Gottman therapist for ourselves.
You just found one.
I just found one. That's right.
Yeah, I'm not actually a Gottman therapist. So there's like layers of Gottmanness.
Yes, I know. There's like 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, so
yes,
I'm 1 and 2. You got to get to like 4 or something.
Got it. You got to white light like the Scientologist. You got to get clear.
Yeah, no, I'm not clear yet. I haven't gone clear.
So when Keri and I were originally discussing having you on as a guest, for some reason I was under the impression that this course would be all about sex, and was really surprised to discover when I watched the videos that I was sent that really wasn't the case. It's all about various different facets of relationships. So can you give us a brief overview of all the different parts that go into baby-proofing your relationship?
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm not surprised that you thought it was all about sex, because like, obviously that's one of the biggest issues when we become parents, one of the things that takes a big hit. But yeah, so the way I frame the course is like, I talk about all of just the general things that happen when you become parents, right? Like all the dynamics that are just a struggle for us as individuals and all the things we're carrying. Like, not having as much time and energy to do the things that you want to do and not knowing what you're doing some large amount of the time. And then I talk about how that just sets a very difficult foundation for your relationship, right? And maintaining any sort of connection with each other. And I don't know how it is for you with your partners, but my wife and I do a lot of dividing and conquering. And so there's like a lot of ships passing in the night sort of vibe between us.
Yep.
And so the connection just gets really threadbare if you don't pay attention to it. And so I use this kind of like fork in the road, right? You can use these challenges as an opportunity to become better partners. And I get that's a very corny thing to say, but I like really believe in it. I just think you can really use these challenges to get closer together and be better partners and better people. Or you just kind of accumulate trash, right? You accumulate shit under the rug over and over and over again. And then next thing you know, you wake up and you're like, we don't really like each other that much anymore. Maybe we've just fallen completely out of love. So then I get specific into, communication stuff. Like I start with communication because it's hard to get through anything else if you can't have a productive conversation. Then there's the lack of sex and intimacy one. There's a money issues one that I call conflicting money styles. Parenting differences, when you don't know how to sort through parenting choices. And then the last one, which is maybe saving the best for last, is the unequal parental load, unequal load pitfall. And so in each... Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say something that also makes it tricky is the longer time you wait between having sex, even with someone who you've been with forever, there's that awkwardness again of like, who's going to initiate, feelings being hurt. Like the longer it goes, kind of the weirder it gets. It's
I don't even
with someone who you've been with for forever too. It's so strange.
Even know. Yeah, I have no idea how to like make the moves on my husband in a nice way. I literally said to him the other night, "Do you want to put it in?" And it was like he had just come in from like.
I mean, I like that directness, Ashley. I'm into that.
That's how it's been. There was one. We try and do it on Sunday. Sorry, this is TMI, but I gotta share. There was one Sunday where like we were like just filthy, like didn't like shower all day, and I just said, "You want to put that stinky dick in this stinky vagina?" And like,
yes,
we did it. It worked, but it'd be nice to be a little romantic about it, maybe.
Well, there's different times for different vibes. But yeah, no, it's like my wife and I, when we had our second kid, things got like really gnarly between us, right? Yeah. And then it starts to feel like all this pressure. You're like, is this going to be good? What does good even mean anymore? Like you get all stressed out about it. I personally would just get like super in my head, and then I get all anxious and I wouldn't last very long. And it was just like, oh, this is terrible. And then you're all disappointed and just kind of repeating this crap over and over again.
Right. It's interesting because in one of your videos, you say that 70% of people experience significant relationship dissatisfaction after having a child. And according to the Gottman Institute, that's according to the Gottman Institute. And that is like a huge number, 70. it's a huge number considering that we live in a culture and society that pushes the importance of having children and like every aspect of parenthood. And we're just not prepared for all of this. You know, like when I was preparing for my daughter and when Ashley was preparing for her son, we read books on everything, natural childbirth, breastfeeding, doula life, baby-led weaning, whatever it was, you know.
The happiest baby on the block, like whatever.
But it was never like, how is your relationship gonna be during and after?
Yeah.
And so aside from your course, how do you think, I mean, your course, obviously, but aside from your course, how do you think that couples can prepare for that kind of like, you know, change maybe in relationship and parenting?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. Like, I did a lot of research to make the course. And one of the things that I discovered is like, when you're pregnant, you're really hopeful. You know, I think I had a weird view on this because I'm coming from being a couples counselor. But, you know, it's like most folks are like, oh, we're really excited. We feel like this is going to enhance our relationship. It's going to bring us closer together. Yeah, right, exactly. And so there's this real like disconnect between like what people are thinking and what the reality of what's going to happen is. So I've tried to sort of adjust the way I talk about this of like, this is going to happen. And also, you know, like it is exciting. You're going to fall more in love with your partner. You're going to be in awe of them, but also other things are going to happen. And, you know, you might feel quite strained. Like it's common you feel quite strained. And I think there's like some high level things. Like for me, I just kind of tell people, as simple as this sounds, just like make sure that you're a team, right? Like when you, and I say two different things of that. Like one is you can fall out of team and feel like you are disagreeing on what you want for your kid, right? And just come back to, well, we both want the best for our kid and we're disagreeing about what the best for our kid means, right? And you can have that sort of,
that difference of opinion.
Let's solve this problem together, even though it's weird because we're the problem for each other, sort of. But like, let's look at this for a distance. Or we both have some needs that aren't getting met and they seem like they're in conflict. How do we find some sort of creative intersection of those things? So I just try to encourage people to come back to how are we in this together, as opposed to how are you the person that's impeding me from making my kid happy or, you know, or getting my needs met and making my life worse.
Now, listen, I'm not a licensed anything, maybe. Driver. I'm a licensed driver.
Barely.
I mean, they should probably take it away from me. But something that I've always said is, you know, so Ashley and I both only have one kid, right? And I noticed the dynamic almost like when I was a kid where I would have a best friend and then a third best friend would come in and it would be kind of weird. That's how my experience with my partner was when I had the baby. It was like the baby came in, the baby liked me better, I liked the baby better, and now Lee, my partner, was the odd man out. And it sort of felt like that kind of weird high school dynamic where it's like these two people are so in love with each other. And now this other person that used to be the beloved is left out. It really felt like that, like my child and I were we're like having like a secret love affair away from my husband. Not to like, I don't mean to, I'm not being gross and sexualizing it, but it really just kind of felt like that. And it's a weird thing.
Yeah, it's super weird. And that's so common, like that exact setup you described, where it's like the baby's the most attached to you. I mean, especially if there's a biological mom, it's like all that attachment stuff. The baby is clinging to
breastfeeding.
Yeah, add in breastfeeding. Yeah, and there's like, it's one of the things I like to do for people as best I can is like give real heavy duty normalization, because some of this stuff feels like pretty fucking embarrassing. Like if you know, it can feel that way. Like I'm jealous of my child. Like I look at my wife and I'm like, I'm jealous of all the attention you're giving to our child. Right. And on the other hand, I'm like,
that kid's getting a lot of your boob and I'm not getting any of that boob.
Yeah, totally. No boob, no boobs for me anymore.
No boobs.
Yeah, I'm out of boobs. Yeah, but you know, it's like on the other hand, I'm like, of course I want you to nurture our child and also like fuck that child. Like, I don't know, it's really confusing.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I found the most fascinating about, and again, I didn't see all the videos, but I did watch, I think like 9 of them. in the sex and intimacy module, you address this change in identity and what is, what someone finds erotic. And you talk about, eroticism versus sensuality. And I found this particularly interesting because it addressed eroticism. And, my son is 5 years old. So I've been at this for 5 years, and I don't think I could pinpoint that this was something that had changed about myself until I watched your video and heard you talk about it. So can you summarize that, the eroticism versus sensuality, so that our listeners are kind of brought up to speed on what I'm talking about? And can you touch on it once you've brought everyone up to speed?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, it makes me really happy that I could help you with something, it's like, it's the goal here.
I just couldn't believe I'm 5 years into this and I'm like, oh, that's what's different. Okay. Now I get it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so just to be clear, I didn't make this up. I have some like sex therapy background, but in any case, one definition is sensuality is like the physical sense pleasure that you get in some sort of physically connective, intimate sexual interaction. Whereas eroticism is the mental component of sexuality. It's kind of what you're imagining, what kind of, like, we use this term context in therapy, right? Is it like, sort of having candles lit, like a nice, subtle, sort of mood, romantic mood? Is it like, I want to lock eyes across the room and be pushed up against the wall type of thing, right? So that's all eroticism, like the context, the imagining.
I don't even think I understood that part, to be honest.
Okay.
At 37 years old, I don't think I understood the difference between sensuality and eroticism. So even just having that spelt out for me in this context was incredibly helpful.
Yeah, awesome. And to be fair, like, none of us does, right? Like, I had to like go in search of a sex therapy education to find any of this stuff out too,
Yeah.
And also,
but yeah,
a mom's brain can barely remember her own name, let alone conjure images of eroticism. I mean, I can't even like remember my zip code.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Totally. Yeah. Well, so this is, sexuality. I think we sort of undercomplicate sexuality. It is a weird thing to say, but sexuality is extremely complicated. The way I hear a lot of people talk about this that bothers me is like, I'm either horny or I'm a sexual person or I'm not a sexual person. I'm not horny. And like, that's, just way underdoing how complicated this is. Yeah, way too simplified. And so when we break it down this way, our identity, like how we feel about ourselves in a sexual situation or how we think we're perceived by our partner, is going to affect our sense of our own horniness or our own turn on or how much we want to engage in something like that. So, and the thing is, like, what I'm talking about in the course is that can change a lot, right? Like, when you become a mom or you become a dad or you become a parent, you've overlaid an entirely new identity onto the identity that you used to have. And in some cases, it can like super cover up that old identity that you used to know yourself to be. And you just feel like mostly a parent. And so when you're integrating that into who you are, it can feel, you can feel like you just desire different things, right? Like, obviously, you don't want to have sex from the vantage point of like parent. For most people, that's not a turn on. But having that new parent self like bleeds in there and affects the way that you want to feel. Like, my wife says, she used to like more intensity in her sexual interaction, and then in becoming a mom, much more preferred gentleness and kind of being romanced. And it took us a while to kind of figure out, like, why are we so off? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I found that really interesting because the way I identified sexually, and I don't mean, preference in male, female. I mean, just like how I felt, the things that did it for me erotically and sensually. Just, I don't think I could I'm trying to put into words what I'm trying to say. There's this phase when and I feel like most listeners, and Keri, and I'm sure you can even identify with this. After you have a child, your body as a woman biologically is like, if you've biologically had a child, it's just fucked, right? You know, between tears and swollen and a creature that's living off of your breast and being touched out and
nutrient deficient,
all these different things. So like, you know, it doesn't, I thought, okay, I just had a baby, this is totally normal, just wanting to be touched in a different way. And, you know, again, 5 years later, I still want to be touched in those ways. And I think it took watching your video to really understand that, no, it's just my preference. What does it for me has just changed in a different way. And, you know, Keri and I put a lot of emphasis on Momtourage on being a mom doesn't change that you are or being a parent. I'll make it a non-binary thing. Being a parent doesn't change who you are as a human being. It doesn't change your goals. It doesn't change your aspirations, unless you're somebody that always wanted to be a parent and that was the thing. But most of us have these other things that we're working towards. So for me to hear you say that in that video and accept that it changed me at this kind of animalistic, primitive level is mind-blowing. And I can't stop talking about it because
it feel like it's
crazy.
Not just you.
Yeah.
You know, and something that I sometimes I get drugged through the coals for this about my over self-confidence, but Ashley and I have a little bit different. I didn't find someone I wanted to settle down with until I was almost 40. And so I had a lot of testing out and trying years, trying all the things. And so I had always had like a very voracious, passionate life. And a lot of my eroticism came from looking at myself and feeling that I was sexy, like turning myself on, like looking at myself in the mirror and being like, I don't even need a guy to be that, turn me on. I can look at myself doing this thing and be turned on. And then, you know, you have a baby and not only is your identity changed, but your body's changed, the physical, the mental. And I no longer look in the mirror and recognize the person that I see. And it has taken such a toll on my sex life because my primary eroticism was myself. And that has like irrevocably changed, like earth shattering to the cellular level. It's been hard for me to even
accept those things, accept those bodily changes
and find a way in, because I'm like, I don't even find myself sexy or attractive. And that was like my most sexy thing, was my self-confidence about how I felt about myself, you know?
Wow. It's like, I feel really moved listening to you talk, Keri, and just you're willing. I mean, I know this is how you two are, but it's just really beautiful to hear you say that. I think this is why, like, I talk a lot about identity. I mean, this even goes back to the question you asked me of like, how do people prepare other than my course? Like, I think you need to prepare yourself for this epic clusterfuck of how you even see or feel about yourself, right? Because to your point, Ash, it's like, there is a part of you that is kind of ever the same, right? You go into parenthood, there's still this core of like, I'm still Aaron. I'll always be some version of the Aaron I know myself to be. But then there's other things that are like, wow, I'm this way and I didn't know I was that way, or I wish I was still that way and I'm not anymore. Like you're talking about, Keri, of like, I used to feel really turned on by myself and now I don't feel that way. So what do I do with that? And there's this weird sort of paradox where you simultaneously have to like maintain the core of who you are and keep remembering who you know yourself to be and not lose yourself, but also go on a journey forward and be like, okay, here I am now. Here we are now in partnership. Like, what do we do with this? What do we make from here? Because it might have all been exploded in this way that you don't recognize anymore.
Yeah. I think you sort of have to sometimes build it from a different place. It's like you have to revisit those things, you know?
This question isn't in what we sent you, but because we're on the topic, if it's okay to ask, and if once I ask it, if you're not into it, that's fine. Let us know. For people who are, so like one of the things, I guess going back to me saying like, you want to put it in as my kind of move,
What a move, Ashley. What a move.
I know. Just call me Rico Suave. One of the things that you touch on in the videos is, and I forget exactly the context, but it's that, we see sex in a different light and the different things it does. So, like, for example, sometimes for me, in my head, I treat sex with my partner as a weekly release that needs to happen. Because for me, there is a release, that a chemical, emotional release that happens. Sometimes it's more sensual and it's connection and it's love and other times it's just, we need this release before we head into the rest of this week. And so one of the ways I treat it is as if it's a release, not to be dehumanizing, not to take away that connection, but he is my partner. I feel safe with him. He feels safe with me. So I can say, hey, do you want to put it in?
Yeah.
And that has really helped me get kind of claw my way back to feeling a little more sexual. What would be your tip to
just
anybody?
Tip. Sorry,
yeah, just
I had to.
What would be your tip for your biggest tip, being that this is our Valentine's Day episode, for couples that are in it, not just baby in it, like down the road in it, and are really trying to get back into a sexual place with their partner? Because I do feel there is a part of it is a routine thing, like Keri said, the longer it gets, the more awkward it gets. You lose, it's almost like a muscle where you have to bring back in even wanting to have sex. And so what is your tip for people? I'm sorry, that was such a horrible way of asking it.
Well, first of all, just you have carte blanche for the rest of this podcast to ask me anything you want. I don't need to be prepared. I appreciate it. So, can I give sort of a layered answer to this question?
Please do.
Please, of course.
Yeah. So, I think the regularity is really important, of just having sort of like a sacred time on the books. That's just like, we are going to make sure that we connect physically.
Even if it's not romantic.
Yeah, even whatever. Well,
even if it's no penetration. It's
even
if
it's no penetration, yeah. Even if it's just massages or something like that, like we can't go too long without, touching each other's bodies or kissing or whatever, right? It's gonna just, destroy our connection. So in the beginning, it's really tough, but I think as you go on, like I think weekly is sort of like for sure, to me, that's just how you should do it. I think in the beginning, like if you can do monthly or whatever at worst, like I think that's a good way to go. But, you'll have, so one of the answers is like, have this conversation, right? Like, what is your ideal frequency for intimate connection right now? And one person might say 3 weeks and one person might say 2 days. And you're like, okay, well, let's split the difference and do 10 days or whatever, right?
Thank God my husband doesn't say 2 days, because I would be like, all right, time to find a new wife, buddy. I don't know.
Yeah, no, but this, this thing gets really exacerbated in parenthood too, as this differences in libido thing. But so in any case, the staple, so make the time sacred. And one like super not awesome, like not amazing, mind-blowing thing I'm going to say is like, just fucking talk about it. Like we do not talk about sex. Like talking about sex. Yeah. And but just with your partner, like you can feel that sort of embarrassment of like, here's what I was thinking after the last time we had sex. Here's what I'm worried about now. Here's whatever, right? Like actually talk about it, debrief it, whatever. But the action plan is like, the staple in sex therapy is that the way that you reintroduce it when you're having a challenge is to do a practice where basically instead of trying to like go with the flow and easily find each other again and like hitting all those roadblocks and maybe it turns into a fight or you don't know what you like anymore, that you each trade off making a request of something that you want. And you get 10 or 15 minutes where the only thing that's happening is you are getting that request. And I advise people when it's very much at the beginning and everything's blown up and all the dynamics you two have talked about, that you sort of can start out with just like sex acts are off the table just to like get rid of the pressure, and then introduce that later. Right. Cause when you're in your stage, it's like, yeah, like we have a 5-year-old, like we want to, I want him to put it in, like, but how can we kind of build where we're going from here? So, and then you trade off. And this can feel kind of stilted and awkward and people kind of resist it, but I think it's so great because
you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, it's got to start somewhere. And it's also like very cool. You get to reflect on like, what do I want right now? Right? The limelight's on me. How does it feel to have the limelight on me? Does this feel great? Does this feel not great? Can I stretch myself a little bit? What would I like to receive? I have to receive. I have to work on receive, not just giving and the output that happens in parenthood, but getting something. And then you trade off. And after that, like, my wife and I have often found like doing that is a big turn on, and we'll end up having some sort of, penetrative sex afterwards, but sometimes not. And sometimes it's a big fucking mess and you end up in a fight, but that's good too, actually, because it's like the mistake couples make in parenthood, not to get so high on my soapbox here, is they just disengage with each other. Yeah. Right. It's like, it's even fine. We'll figure it out.
Fighting is a part of passion.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
You give a shit.
Yeah. Like number one principle, stay engaged. Yeah. Even if it sucks, it's better to keep being engaged than it is to have nothing going on.
Something I have to remind myself, like in those moments where I've tried to broach something like really what feels intimate or intense or weird or awkward with me to my partner, like saying, hey, I've never wanted to tell you this before, but I don't really like how you do that. I think there's, those awkward conversations, like I have to remind myself that afterwards, I feel this kind of intimacy with him after I have relayed this information. And he is always, even if it's clunky or there's some little whatever, he has taken it in. Every time it has proven to be a breakthrough where we feel closer to each other than we've ever been. It doesn't always lead into the most romantic or sexually passionate kind of thing, but it always ends in us feeling stronger and closer than we were before. And so I just always have to remind myself that all the ick and the whatever to get through it, in the end, it does leave us to a closer place. It's like you have to remind yourself that that's the payoff.
Yeah. And not to be this guy, but it's like, that's the thesis of the course, right? Like, yeah. Exactly. It's just like, if you're
welcome.
Moving towards these, perfect setup. There we go. Yeah. And also, Ash, one thing I also want to say about what you said is like, I think we just need to have space for sex to just be a bunch of different ways. Like sometimes it's just like, we're just going to have a quickie on the couch, and maybe it's not going to be that mind-blowingly orgasmic, but whatever, right? It's like
clean the pipes, as I say. It's a little maintenance, little maintenance.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes it's like we're going to have like a whole intimate hangout here and take a bath and whatever.
I don't think enough people say that. I don't think enough people in a position of informative power like you, and by that I mean like you've studied this, you actually know what you're talking about, say that, because me personally, for so long I thought like it has to be a certain way or it's invalid, and that's not true, and that's not life, because life is messy and things get messy and hard and all this other stuff. And I think it took me becoming a parent to understand that.
So many of our listeners aren't new parents. They've been at this for like a hot sec. For those parents that are like way down this parenting wormhole and find themselves so deep in being unhappy in their relationships, what do you think the first step? I mean, you sort of have touched on it a little bit, but if you feel like you're already at that step of being so far disengaged that it feels like, how can I even re-engage? What would you recommend like a good first step being if you feel that, away from your partner?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of forks, right? It depends on whether or not there's like any sort of willingness or hope that it's going to get better. Like oftentimes I've worked with a lot of people who are on the brink of divorce, who are literally walking into my office going, we've come to you to decide of whether or not we can save this, and
no pressure.
Exactly. It's intense. But so there's like this fork. It's like, sometimes both people are like, we realize we're in a terrible place and we're so motivated to make it better. And so I'll speak to that in a second, but also there's the other side of it, which is like one person's really motivated and the other one feels super hopeless and actually isn't willing to do anything. And they're kind of just hanging on.
Ashley knows I was there when we were a while ago, and my just to shout out my partner. Well, sorry to interrupt you. Please remember your thought, but I just want to shout out my partner who also edits this podcast for us. Mixes. Thank you.
Just
Eve edits. Yes. We love you, Eve. You know, I'm a very like heated emotional person, so I'm very all or nothing. And he is a little bit more staid. And he was like, I was like, I'm done. I'm looking for apartments. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Like, this is my one last shot. We're going to find a Gottlieb, you know, a Gottman specialist. But I feel like I'm already out. And he was like, listen, can we just like dial it down a notch? I hear what you're saying, but I also think that this intensity of feeling might pass. Of course, I'm willing to do whatever you want to do, but like, can we maybe approach it when the intensity of the feeling has passed? And, you know, I was like, no, we can't. You're just dilly-dallying again, you know, like, because that's the kind of bitch that I am. I mean, I am. But it was true. Like, a sea change happened, life happened, and we still know we need to work on things. But that like hot button part of it that was primarily driven by me because I'm a hot button girl kind of eased. And I was so thankful that he knows me well enough and knows himself well enough to be like, okay, if it feels that way, then it's a valid feeling. But also maybe we could just like let some of the air out a little bit, you know?
Yeah, no, that good for, I'm the you in my marriage, so I totally feel you, Keri.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like, this is a disaster. I was like,
dare you? Yeah.
I know we're not doing well, but it's okay.
Yeah.
So I think if you're on that side, right, like I think I have like little terms for all these things, right? But basically, I think at that point you need kind of like a zoom out. So it's like going backwards until you find a point of agreement, right? It's like, I know we don't agree about what the problems in our relationship are, but do we agree that our relationship has problems, right? Like as a starting point. Yes. Okay, we do. Do we agree that we want to work on those problems, right? That we want to try and find our way through them, right? And you might find a point of divergence there. I don't know. It depends on what you mean by work on it, right? And like these conversations, while they seem very simple, can get really complicated, right? Because for some people, it's like, yeah, I am working on it. And it's like, well, the way you're working on it isn't shit compared to the thing that I'm expecting you to be doing, right? So you got to get real specific, define your terms, and get back to a place of like, we are willing to reset, or we're willing to like do a march forward. Like we're willing to see we're not in a good place. And ideally, like we'll give this everything we have. Like what I say to people is, I don't need you to end up staying together, but I do need you to participate for the sake of whether you do end up not being together, that feels actually like you're both like, yep, we've done everything we can. We feel like there's just no other option, right? And they require the same thing, right? They require full buy-in, full participation. And I say like either connection or clarity, right? We're in this for connection or clarity. So that's one side. The other side, if you're both bought in, is this is maybe a controversial thing to say. I think relationships don't have that many problems. Like I think people are much more simple than we think we are. And I think basically when you get into this place where you're ready to call it, it's because you've gone to, my partner is 2X. They'll never meet my needs because they're 2X, right? So I say resentment is like a negative ongoing character assessment. Right. And then my partner goes to me, they're 2Y. So they're never going to meet my needs because they're 2Y. And then you create this reinforcing feedback loop where it's like, I'm doing the thing that's
made. And then you look for the thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you just keep getting worse and worse and worse, more and more and more resentful. And I think relationships have like at most 3 core issues, most of the time, like 1 or 2, where it's like, we seem like we're on opposite sides of the spectrum. Like a very common one is like, you're too needy versus you're too distant, right? The you're too distant person needs space and freedom and autonomy to like want to connect and feel like, right. And then the other person has this more Keri's pointing at herself. You're listening to this on audio. Ash is also pointing to herself.
I'm pointing for the next one. I'm the opposite one.
And then the other one is, I need to feel safe with the closeness, right? I need to feel like we're a team. That's me too, right?
Thankfully, my husband also is like that, so it works out. Yeah,
right. So not everyone falls into that category, right? Yeah. But basically, it's like what I say to people is, you need to go both directions. you need to start to look at how can I go more to my partner's side, right? If I'm the one who needs more distance, how can I stretch myself to be more connected? If I'm the one who needs more freedom, how can I stretch myself, or excuse me, if I'm the one who needs connection, how can I stretch myself to be more independent and feel safe on my own? And also realize that you are overly sensitive to the thing you're judging, right? It's like you have a valid point. Like I always say this to couples that come into my office. You're right. And you're also overly sensitive to the dynamic you're calling out, right? They probably are too distant. And also you can't handle separation, right? So you're hitting it from both sides, trying to create a more fulfilling dynamic for both of you by each kind of working on your thing, but also not letting go of the thing that you need more of.
That was a game changer. My therapist, when I was in my regular therapist, my husband and I, or my baby daddy and I, have done couples therapy with her, and she was like, your intrinsic needs are go in opposition of each other. So you fight. All your fights are about that. So if you can just know that Keri needs for autonomy and space and independence, and Lee needs to be recognized and loved and affirmed and held, then maybe you can, the way that you can get, more bees with honey than vinegar by like addressing his deep need while you're also advocating for what you want, And I was like, whoa, this is why I pay you the big bucks.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I say to people, like, most fights are literally just some version of you don't love me enough or the way I want to be loved versus nothing I do is ever enough for you or you don't appreciate my efforts. Like that is the structure of, I don't know what percentage of fights between couples.
What fun side note, not fun at all. When Ashley and I were on another show called Scary Mommy, we one time had this reader. Ashley, do you remember this? We had this reader question or something. And it was basically like, she wanted to do something and her husband said he wasn't even going to try and go to therapy. What should she do?
I vaguely remember that.
And Ashley and I were like, she was just saying something, and I want my husband to go to therapy because our marriage will be over and he won't do it. And Ashley and I were like, whoa.
Like he does not want to be in that marriage then.
Like, that's what you're saying, the willingness. Like, I just can't even imagine having a partner that was not willing to do what it took to work on it. Like, I don't, Ashley and I were like, well, then you shouldn't be with him. That's our advice.
Like he sounds very uncompromising.
He's showing
and like
you exactly
done.
what he's about to give you. And that is nothing. It was one of those moments where we tried to make it not so, but we were like, wow, that's totally shitty.
This is a really bad situation to be in. We are sorry for you.
Yes. We'll send you a coaster. Bye.
I mean, I definitely have, like, therapy just has still this kind of stuff has such a bad stigma in our culture. Like, I can't tell you the number of people that come to me who are like, I refused to go to therapy for so long because it was admitting that we were broken. And it's like, that's
we're
the
all
narrative,
broken.
Right?
Hello.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoever assumed we weren't.
Right.
I know. Well, that's somehow our culture has assumed this.
We're individually broken, like all of us in some way. So of course, when we come together, you know, it's not necessarily any better.
Yeah. So I certainly have empathy for the fear of therapy, but it's like this again, this like digging in thing and zooming out. It's like, what happens if this is a deal breaker for me? Does anything change for you? Right? Like, what happens if what are you worried about? Why won't you go to therapy? Like, I think these things deserve to go past the initial like reaction, because we all can be really reactive when presented with something that's scary to us. And like, if you're in a partnership, like I tell people, just be ruthlessly curious, right? Just keep asking your question. Like, what is it? Like, why is that? Why won't you do it? What if this? What if that? And if you just get fucking nowhere, if all you're presented with is walls, it's like, like some relationships just aren't going to continue.
Yeah.
Like, that's when you deserve better.
Yeah.
So going to more of a fun point, being that this is our Valentine's Day episode, despite what everyone's perception, I think Valentine's Day is a lot of pressure, and it's a good opportunity to get ripped off, but I still love to celebrate
I thought you
love.
were just going to say it's a good opportunity to get ripped. And I was like, well, we do like to drink on Valentine's Day, for sure.
Any day is a good opportunity to get ripped, really. What is one thing you think every couple should do to celebrate Valentine's Day?
I actually have been thinking about this a lot lately. which is something I don't think about that much, but I don't know. I think, so here's something I was thinking about, was suggesting that people do that practice we talked about before, right? And whatever version of it feels accessible to you, right? To kind of change the dynamic a little bit. Like,
do one thing for me, do one thing for you. Practice.
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky because, like, especially the Gottmans, but just couples therapy in general, are very like anti-transaction, right? Which makes sense because you don't want to get into this like quid pro quo, I'll only do this if you do this. But I think that's different than just like separating your needs and collaborating. So if you can do that collaboratively and like as a gift to each other, I think that's really cool. I was thinking about like trade roles, right? Like give your partner the gift of doing their role for a day, right? Or some part of their role, and they do some part of your role.
I kind of like that.
Yeah. I was also thinking about give each. So Valentine's Day falls, I think, on a Tuesday this year. Yeah.
Yes, because our show's on a Wednesday. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So it might not be, right. It might not be the best setup for this. So maybe you celebrate on the weekend or something. But I was also like, give each other a half dream day. Like my wife, her dream day is like, get these kids out of the house. I want to take a bath. I want to read. I want to exercise, and I want to hear or see anyone for like 3 hours. It's like, cool, I got it. And I'm like, I'm deeply obsessed with golf, although I know people have a mixed relationship with golf, but that's just my happy place. So for me, it's like, if we could get a babysitter and play golf together, that would be awesome for me, or just get to go out there. So I think it's like, some people have a gifts love language, if you want to talk about it like that. So maybe you do want gifts, but I think it's like, to me, if we think about the core of Valentine's Day as like celebrating our partnership, it's like, then I go to, what are the things that would make us feel more connected in our partnership? And I feel like you get empathy from doing each other's roles. You get more connected from doing some version of the sensuality practice, right? You feel gratitude or appreciation if your partner gives you a dream scenario, So that's kind of where my mind goes with that.
Those are fun. What great suggestions. I love those.
Thank you.
Role reversal. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be like, you mean me, maybe you. No, I took that in a different direction. Sorry.
That works too.
I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah, let us know, Keri.
So we ask all of our guests this. What is one thing that you think that parents should outsource if they have the means to do so?
I mean, so many things, but
I know.
Okay. Since I'm relationship, since I'm a relationship guy, I have to say evening babysitting, right? So you can get a time away.
Well, frisky time.
We haven't gotten that one before, that answer. In this way, at least.
Yeah, like have someone who you're comfortable with and is comfortable putting your kids to bed, right? So they can do the whole nighttime routine. And you leave the house, right? Get out of the house, get out of this environment in which you're not just in a relationship anymore, in which you have to co-pay bills and clean shit and all this stuff, and go have fun and remember what it's like to be the two of you. If you have like a lot of resources, either drop the kids off with your parents or whatever, or get a multiple day babysitter and overnight somewhere. I think that's like so good for your relationship to just switch it up like that.
Totally agree with you on that one. All right, cool. Thank you. Plug yourself, plug Babyproofing Your Relationship. Tell everyone where they can find all the good stuff. There's a great place to also put your code and all that other stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So
yeah, you got it.
Well, so I think what I made is amazing. I mean, when I was having my first kid with my wife, like you, I read all the books. I watched Happiest Baby on the Block, right? And it's just like, I'm a couples counselor. What is this going to do to our relationship? My parents got divorced. They seemed really unhappy. I don't even think they talked to each other after I was 2 years old.
I was makeup sex from the separation. Guess what didn't work?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So so we're in this. Yeah. So it's like, it's a big deal. Our culture doesn't talk about it. I mean, one of the things I want to do is like normalize preparing your relationship, that's just part of the process, the L&D class, the newborn care. So anyway, I think so Cameron is my creative partner. She's a documentary filmmaker, Emmy nominated, makes super beautiful videos. And I'm just so proud of this. I think the information in it is really top notch. I think it's not the type, like, I'm not just reading a slideshow, right? I'm not clicking through a slideshow. You're looking at my face. It's like, these are produced videos
and you're
on
a
a set.
charismatic guy, I have to say.
And
Thank
I also
you.
want to say, like, this is going to be our 155th episode. So we have talked to a lot of experts. We've talked to a lot of different people who do a lot of different things. We've had to watch a lot of different things to write questions and produce segments. And I have not, it's rare I am actually this into a course, a topic, and the course. So I really would urge.
It speaks to,
yes,
yeah,
it
rather
really speaks to what you do and your course and your depth of knowledge and your training and all of that. And I really do think a lot of people should consider looking into what you do and taking your courses, because I think even if you feel like you're in a very healthy relationship, which for the most part I do, there is something to take from this.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, I really believe in it. And so, just so your listeners know, like, I know a lot of the folks who listen to the show are more sort of like deep into the process. So I separate from first time expecting parents or pregnant parents. Like, we have a course called Babyproofing Your Relationship, Essential Prep. And then we have Babyproofing Your Relationship, which we're currently calling In the Trenches. I don't know. Well, we might change that title, but
That's
we
a
like
good
it.
title, I'd
Yeah,
say. Yeah.
we like it for now. So that's more of like in our world, right? I know I say early parenthood, but I've had people take this course who have 3 kids that are between like 11 and 5 and say, like, literally, we're on the brink of divorce, and this allowed us to work through our issues in therapy, and know how to talk about it. So I think it's awesome. I think there's something for everyone, as you said. And yeah, I I really take this seriously. Like, I've dedicated my whole life to understanding relationships and communication, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. And I want to offer your listeners a 25% off coupon for our stuff.
Tell them where to go. Tell them the website first.
Yeah. So the website is babyproofingyourrelationship.com. We also have joinbyr.com and trybyr.com, if that's easier to remember.
Get them.
Yeah. And the code Momtourage will get you 25% off.
Thank you so much for offering that to our listeners, because I think that's a great discount.
That's a great Valentine's Day present to your partner.
It is. It is a really good Valentine's Day present.
Ashley and I don't know what that says about us, but Ashley and I we started the show because of it. So we really tend to be like, that's good for other people, but not for us, kind of thing. Like, happy for all the advice, but I don't really see myself in that advice. So good for you. But speaking to what Ashley said, it's rare that we find something that we're like, oh, we actually feel like we are seeing ourselves in this advice or this piece, and so thank you for creating something that these 2 girls who are just constantly like, yeah, that's good for somebody, but not us. Thanks for making something good for us.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I really appreciate all your compliments, but it's like I came of age in the coaching world, right? And I started down this road in 2010, and I just have a real sort of like moral issue with what's happened in my industry, where it's just like people are just selling outrageously expensive crap that doesn't actually do anything. They haven't actually tried any of the things that they're telling you to do, And so it was really important for me. Like, I want this to like be really good. Like, you're going to feel like you relate to it, and you're going to immediately be like, I could implement that today. Right. Yeah. And like have it be something where, it's less than couples therapy, 1 session for most people, right? And there's just a lot of stuff in it. And also, Ash and I were talking about this earlier, like, my wife and I do 2 15-minute interviews in it where we talk like very candidly. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. About our own shit.
Yep. And it really does. It helps like drive the point home. It makes you feel like less alone in something that can be very scary and very polarizing, Yeah. But yeah, guys, check it out. Babyproofingyourrelationship.com. Use code Momtourage for 25% off. All of this will, the website and the code will also be in our show notes. Hey, thank you so much Aaron. For coming on the show. We've really enjoyed talking with you. And I think what you're doing is great.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast talking to the two of you. It was nice to be with you.
Thank you.
So the other day, I was giving Sebastian a bath, and he said, I don't remember what I said, but he said, "I'm the smartest kid in the world." And I kind of looked at him like, oh, no. and he said, "No, Mama, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm the smartest kid in the world." And I said, okay. And he has additionally, I've noticed, been saying things like calling the other kids in his class dumb. And saying like, "Oh, well, the other kids in the class aren't as smart as me." And the other day I stopped him and I said, "Listen, you are," and he really is. So, I mean, I'm telling you, this kid is reading full-blown reading.
I know. That's crazy to me.
No. It's beyond even what you've seen now. It is. The other day he was reading, like, the first page of a book where it says, like, copyright, published. Yeah. He was reading most of those words. When has this kid seen published? It's
right.
It's to the point where I don't even know how to manage it, but
he's like, I have a book deal. That's how I know what published says.
Basically. And I said, "You are very, very advanced, and we're trying to get him into this advanced school and all this other stuff. So I'm cooling it for right now, and then we'll see where we go with things." But I said, "You are very smart and you are very advanced, but you can't call people stupid or dumb because they're not at the level you're at." And it really made me a little bit concerned that maybe he's a little overly confident. He is a white passing boy in Union City, New Jersey, where it's predominantly Hispanic kids. A lot of kids don't even speak English. And he's, a boy. He's going to grow up to be a man. I don't want him to walk around with, like, lack of a better term, average white man complex, even though he's not an average white man. You get what I mean? So
yes,
I started to do a little research, and I came across an article from Family Friendly HQ on how to handle overconfident kids. So these are some tips that they said. Firstly, teach them to respect others. A child that's overly confident will continuously rate themselves to others and be somewhat self-centered at times. Ding, ding, ding. They may choose to laugh at others' lack of abilities. He doesn't laugh. He is kind, but he says things quietly to me. And you need to show them that it's important to be respectful of others. Remind them that other people have their talents and their passions, and it doesn't make them any less of a person because they may not be as good at things. Secondly, encourage them to be modest about their capabilities. See, this one I'm kind of on the fence about. I'd love to hear what you think.
Yes.
Sure, your kid may be the best ball player, the fastest runner, but when you congratulate them, they should be a little modest and thank people for their kind words. So I agree. I think we should absolutely sit in our power, right? Like, sit there and say, I am really intelligent. I am really creative. I am whatever you are really great at. It's okay to acknowledge that. But also, that fine line of where sitting in acknowledgement of your skills becomes overconfident. And because I was kind of raised in this, you get a trophy for participating time in the world.
Yeah, I was not.
It's my mother wasn't like that, but that was kind of like school,
Yeah.
I'm trying to really navigate this, and I'm having a little bit of a hard time. What do you think about the being modest of their capabilities?
I mean, I think that the most powerful people in the world don't talk about their power. People who are weak try to drum.
Is so funny coming from you, because you talk about your power all the time. So it's very funny to hear you say that. I don't mean that in a bitchy way at all.
Well,
okay.
And I realize that that's ironic. I sort of feel like I shout myself out for the things that I'm good at.
Which we should.
Right. But on a whole, like, I don't, like, I do it on the show, but like when I walk into let's just say, for example, when I walk into an audition, I'm not like, hey guys, I'm an incredibly seasoned actor who's been on lots of things. So
very true.
You know what I mean? I mean, on the show, I say I'm really good at that, but
well, in not just the like, because you'll say it to me too, but also but I'm like a safe place. I'm a friend, exactly. Right.
I'm not walking into like a business environment or like a team sport
and being like, guys, best person showed up.
Right. It's like with my friends and stuff. And that's like part of that, I think, for me is to try to encourage people to do it themselves. Like I'm like a cheerleader hype girl. Like I want people, hold on, Luna. I want people to feel comfortable to shout themselves out with what they're good at. Like it's like a shine theory kind of thing. I want people to be like, to say, no, I'm good at this. Let me do it. Like, it's okay. I think people that need to like prove their power or keep talking about it have like little dick syndrome, you know?
They're
like,
overcompensating.
Right. And so something with Luna, I always say is like, yes, mommy tells you you're good at all these things for sure. However, you can't make people feel bad. Different people have different things that they're good at. And you might be good at one thing and someone else might be good at something else. But if you say or brag about how good you are and it makes someone else feel bad, then that's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, can't you both be good at things? Or like, I think the most important lesson from this, which is kind of the opposite, is to teach kids how to fail well. That's more important to me. If they have good self-confidence and are a little bit braggartly, I'm okay with that as long as when they fail well.
Well, I'll read you the rest of these points really quickly to that point. Remind them to never underestimate others, because overconfidence can rear its head and it can be easy for your child to rebuff any other competition or think themselves too good for the opposition.
Stop, get out of here.
Next up, though they may be talented, they should be a role model for others. So you want to remind your child that their talents are incredible, as you don't want to demean them, but that this means that they should be a role model for future little ones who look up to your child. I don't know. That one's a little weird to me.
Yeah.
Because, it's kind of like, should we shame Miley Cyrus for going through her life and, like, even though she's a role model for other little kids? No, she's a kid. Like, she's doing her thing. That's not her responsibility.
Also, I think a healthy dose of self-confidence is good because
Agreed.
It makes your kids not want to be, like, sheep.
Yeah, 100%. The word I was thinking was followers, and it's the same exact thing. Tell them the truth that self-praise is no praise. So your child may do great at things, but going on about it themselves is of no benefit. So basically,
let someone else praise you.
Right. Like, don't walk, what you were saying. You don't want to walk into a room and be like, greatest motherfucker showed up,
Yeah.
Last two, challenge your child. If your child is overconfident, challenge them with different tasks to remind them of practicing and how to build on their abilities. I love doing that to Sebastian.
Yeah, I don't always let Luna or anyone else win. I'm like, sometimes I let her win, but I don't want kids to get used to having to win. I have a cousin whose kid is like obnoxious about that.
Well, even if I see him getting a little too big in his britches, I'll challenge him with something I know he can't do just to knock him down a few pegs. I know that sounds fucked up, but really it is for me a way of being like, don't get overly confident.
Right.
Chill out. And lastly, communicate openly with your child and keep them grounded. So if your child is being cocky, tell them, which, I have no problem doing.
Right.
And then I found some tips for those children who may need a little bit of confidence.
Yeah.
These are from parents who raise confident, smart, and empathetic children do these 5 things. And this article is from CNBC. 1, they focus on their child's behavior. So they compliment specific behaviors as opposed to complimenting your child as a whole person.
I love that.
Yeah, great job, as opposed to, you're the best kid,
Yeah.
This one I found interesting. They use guilt, not shame. So this professor of psychology, Adam Grant, says that using a little guilt to correct your kids is better than using shame. So the example is, when your children feel guilt, they tend to experience remorse and regret and empathize with the person that they have harmed to and aim to make it right. So if your child does something wrong, shaming communicates to the child that he or she is not a good person, while guilt asks the child to reflect on how a specific behavior missed the mark and is a motivator for more positive behavior in the future. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I know. I don't love, as growing up as an Irish Italian.
Yes.
Guilt is not, that's a triggering word for me, but that is interesting. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more.
I even think the way it's explained is something that has to be mulled over in general.
Yeah.
3, they build self-worth. So they recommend that before toddlers evolve into preschoolers, we should ask them to be helpers, that involving your children, this is something you and I have talked about extensively and doesn't necessarily happen in my house. Involving your children in daily tasks provides them with self-compassion and makes them feel like they have something meaningful to offer. So I noticed when I involve Sebastian in a chore, he's a lot more empathetic. He's kinder.
Yep.
He feels good about himself. Number 4, they discuss emotions. And number 5, they avoid bribery. So sometimes parents, they give up on correcting bad behavior and resort to bribery, which I do.
I know. Wow, we're this is a polarizing article, really, honestly. This is going to take a while for me to sit in.
The link is in our show notes, so you guys should read both of these articles. I thought this was an interesting topic because it gave me a lot to think about and a lot of mental challenges in raising my kid. So several researchers say that parents should avoid this technique. Bribing is a strategy that only works in the short term. Good behavior isn't something that should be bought with toys and food. Parents should be tapping into children's natural reservoir of wanting to do good. Good luck. I have not figured out how to do that. Have you? I know you haven't either.
No. Oof.
Yep.
Wow, Ashley, I don't know how I feel about all that right now.
Yeah, I know. We'll mull this one over. Sometimes we don't have a solution for people. We just present them with peer-reviewed journals.
Definitely not us.
I mean,
we'll
not
peer-reviewed. We'll get back to you on our feelings on that. Oof.
Let us know what you guys think. Email us at hello@momtouragepodcast.com. We'd really like to hear where you stand on having an overly confident child, how to handle an overly confident child, or these tips from, psychologists on how to get your child to be a little more confident. Yeah.
All right. Should we do a quick hashtag swag bag?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Aquaphor. That's it. Aquaphor.
I know. It's amazing.
For everything.
Yep.
I use it on my eyebrows when I don't have makeup on. I curl my lashes and use it on my eyelashes with a spoolie. I use it as hand cream. I use it as foot cream. I use it as mouth cream. Sometimes I use it as eye cream. It is just... When Sebastian was wearing diapers, we used it as diaper rash cream. Aquaphor is literally the greatest thing. I
use it for my cuticles. I use it on Luna's cuts when they're scabbing.
Yes. Yes, it is expensive. It really is. I bought this and the big tube on Amazon for $23, and I was like, Jesus Christ.
I have a spray one now I just got to see how spray Aquaphor will be, because sometimes it hurts when I'm rubbing it on Luna, so I'm going to try the spray and let you know.
And this one, I carry this in my purse with me everywhere for its multi-purpose. Just the best. Aquaphor.
I wish the tube was a little bit easier to squeeze out the last bit.
Agreed.
But okay, so on that same note, Just for Men beard dye.
I did mine 2 days ago.
So I love my girl Laura. She's been on the show before. She lives in Brooklyn. She gets all booked up. I try to go to her whenever I can, but honestly, my brows are very light, and so in between I need to dye them a little bit up, and so I use the Just for Men beard dye in a brown color. I leave it on for hardly any time, not what they say, and I use copious amounts of Aquaphor or Vaseline around it so that I don't get the brown edge. And it's a game changer. It really is a game changer. So Just for Men beard for your brows.
And that's not even just a tip for the light-haired ladies like Keri. For me, where I have sparse spots in my eyebrows, this picks those little hairs up and makes them bolder, so I don't have to fill in my eyebrows. I think it's for everybody, honestly. Yeah, it is the best trick.
It also makes the ones that you need to tweeze easier to see.
Yes, and it is. I leave it on for the full 5 minutes, like they suggest, but it is.
I don't, because you have dark hair. Light-haired ladies, I would not do the full.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, whatever it is that you did for Valentine's Day, I hope you felt loved and cherished because you deserve that.
We love you. You're our
we
Valentine.
Love you. Yep.
Bye.
Bye.